Alright guys, so in this video we are going to watch together a mini documentary from the Financial Times. Petrobras fueling the future or stuck in the past. So for the people that don't know, Petrobras is the biggest company in Brazil and it has a kind of love and hate relationship with it's a politician. A bunch of politicians in Brazil are now in jail because they requested too much money from Petrobras. I mean, you know how it is. Politicians, they love oils. Oils love politicians. They love exchanging money with each other. So I don't know what the Financial Times wants to tell us in this short documentary. So I'm sure it's going to be quite entertaining knowing the past of Petrobras. And for the people that are new to this channel, my name is Damien. I've been involved in commodity trading my entire career, and today I run and operate a bunch of commodity related business. And something that could be quite interesting for that video, my wife is also from Brazil, so I kind of know how up this beautiful country could be. Alright, let's watch it.
We're looking at one of the most important oil companies in the world, one of the most important companies in Brazil, that has over the years developed kind of fantastic technology for deep sea oil drilling.
Petrobras has had lots of superlatives over the years. It was at one point the world's most indebted oil company. A few years ago, it was the world's biggest corporate dividend payer. It was also at the center of the world's largest foreign bribery case.
Acho que quando a gente olha para o passado, talvez em algum momento nós tenhamos.
Alright, they are not saying it, but this woman is the current CEO of Petrobras.
Ido rápido demais.
The question now is, in what direction is it going, and at what cost, both for investors and Brazilian society?
For investors? Yeah, that's true, man. Petrobras is quoted. Man, if I can give you like, this is not financial advice, right? But usually it's a very bad idea to buy stocks of a company that much intertwined with politics. Alright, let's see the stock. What has done Petrobras over the... Alright, so it started roughly 20 years ago at 23 real and now it's 29 real. So if you account the inflation over the last 20 years, so holding Petrobras was an awful idea because you probably lost a lot of money. Also, the yield is extremely high, so they offer a lot of dividend, but don't forget that those dividends are in Brazilian reals. So that's something that I want to show you. Yeah, maybe it's going to be better like that way. So 30 years ago, 1 real was almost equivalent to $1. Today, 6 real is equivalent to $1. So the purchasing power of the real against the US dollar has decreased by more than 80% over like 20 years. So you can understand why the Brazilian population is struggling to make ends meet with such level of inflation. I mean, basically the politics is robbing the Brazilian of their purchasing power like every year by printing money. So yeah, that's tough, man. It's obviously I know a lot of people in Brazil, a lot of friends from Brazil, and it's a tough country for a lot of people to live here. So the country is so poorly managed, and you can see it just here on that chart how bad it has been over the last 20 years. So some moments have been better, some moments have been worse, but it's not going in the right direction.
Petrobras has huge importance to the Brazilian economy. It's the largest taxpayer. Crude oil is now Brazil's largest export, and a lot of that comes from Petrobras, so it's a big source of foreign currency earnings. It also has this multiplier effect on the economy by helping to create jobs in other sectors.
It employs hundreds of thousands of people, it's traded on stock market.
Yeah, so, and this is true. Brazilian, they have a lot of extremely good engineers, geologists, and so on. I mean, right now I'm recording this video out of Malaysia, and all my Brazilian friends that lived in Malaysia, they all work in oil and gas, and most of them are engineers. They run huge operations for drilling and so on. For sure, the Brazilian knows how to do that.
It's all over the world. It's got a market cap of, I think, about $70 billion. It was well over $100 billion just a few years ago.
Brazil is about the 9th largest oil producing nation in the world, and the government wants it to become the 4th biggest by the end of the decade, and Petrobras is central to those ambitions.
It is a massive, successful oil company. It delivers huge dividends to its shareholders, one of which is the government. But both sides of the argument would say that Petrobras could be contributing a lot more to the Brazilian economy. It's just that, they would disagree dramatically on how it should do that, by becoming more focused and more highly profitable, or by being more diverse and being a bigger driver of industrial development.
Under the previous government, led by right-winger Jair Bolsonaro, they sold off lots of Petrobras assets and they tried to get it to slim down and really focus on its core of oil and gas exploration. Jair Bolsonaro even said that eventually they would be interested in privatising that. However, with the return of Lula, that is now completely off the table.
And so Petrobras is being asked to fulfil this role of a driver of economic expansion. But people have very strong recent living memory of it having gone badly wrong last time. It ended up with Lava Jato, it ended up with Petrobras being massively indebted, with having to cancel projects, with stuff being sold, with people just going out of work.
All right, so Lava Jato scandal, it means car wash in Portuguese. It's one of the biggest, basically, bribery scheme ever. So it's estimated, if I remember well, that 2 to 5 billion have been schemed. And basically it was quite an easy scheme, is people would bill Petrobras something that would worth, 100 million. So they would bill it for 110 million. And then those extra 10 million would go to the pocket of a different politician. And surprisingly enough, if you don't know Brazilian politics, the current president, Lula, was in jail because of that scandal a few years ago. So he was president of Brazil, in jail, and now he's president again. Man, Brazilian, what are you doing? What the But yeah, it's estimated between 1 and 5 billion. That was the amount that has been taken away. But I think it should be way more than that, because I remember that one of the main guys in that Lava Jato scandal was Albrecht. I think Albrecht. And these guys said that he's basically bribed for almost $1 billion of US dollar countries around Brazil for different real estate projects and so on. So if the guy was able to bribe around 1 billion, they probably stole way more than 5 billion from Petrobras.
In the previous decade, Petrobras was at the centre of a huge political corruption scandal in Brazil called Lava Jato, or car wash, named after the investigation that uncovered it.
Petrobras was one of the big companies that was handing out huge contracts to construction companies, and the bribes were being skimmed off the top.
Essentially, you had a cartel of construction companies who were paying bribes to have contracts with Petrobras, and then politicians and high-ranking company executives were receiving kickbacks in exchange.
And it escalated, and they ended up putting big national business people in prison. The boss of Odebrecht, the huge construction company that operates across Brazil and all around Latin America and beyond, he had his head shaven and went to prison. This was the kind of thing that just never happened in Brazil. Big people could afford big, expensive lawyers and just never went to prison, and these people did.
Car wash had a high connection link with politics, right? All the way to President Lula.
They sent former and future President Lula to prison. He was implicated in the Lava Jato scandal. There was the question of a beachside property that he never actually occupied. Had he received this as part of the scandal or hadn't he? He was convicted. The conviction was overturned.
The car wash operation put Brazil and put Petrobras.
Yeah, and so about this car wash operation, 1/3 of the Brazilian parliament was, I think, convicted or under investigation for taking money. So 1/3. So imagine all the people that Brazilian elected to represent them toward the government. 1/3 of them had some issue with this with these scandals, but I guess that 90% of them, I think they touch something. So yeah, that's bad, man. But you know what? This is politician, man. You know when you have like no skills and you want power in your life, and the only thing that you know is how to do is lying, then yeah, you become politician. So
Petrobras on the global spotlight. That was a pivotal moment in the recent history of Brazil. And I think about the business context in Brazil. A lot of companies start implementing integrity and compliance programs after car wash. Petrobras.
Yes, obviously they implemented a lot of program, but I can tell you that nothing has really changed.
As itself had to implement a very strong compliance and integrity program. They had to sign a deal with the DOJ. So there was a major repercussion.
The US Department of Justice got thoroughly involved, described this as the biggest international corruption case in history.
A obra da Petrobras parou da noite para o dia. As empresas, literalmente, as empresas paralisaram, anoiteceu num dia, no dia seguinte não tinha mais ninguém na obra. Sou Cláudio Chaude, sou diretor e sócio da empresa Alutec, locadora de máquinas, e trabalhei muito nesse ramo de fornecer máquinas para Petrobras e outras empresas que fazem parte do complexo petrolífero aqui de Pernambuco. Porque você imagina esses 20 mil funcionários, de repente demitidos, muitos foram para outros estados. Com a crise veio uma recessão também. Então 2015, 2016 e 2017 foram 3 anos terríveis, onde nós tivemos que nos desdobrar para tentar sobreviver.
At the same time as Lava Jato, Petrobras became the most indebted oil company in the world. And critics said that was because it was stretching itself too far. It was investing in these kind of refinery projects and other areas that weren't going well and that money was wasted. And at the same time, it was being pressured by the government to subsidise fuel prices, which cost it tens of billions of dollars.
During the government of Dilma Rousseff, who came in after the 2 big successful periods of Lula, she really heavily intervened, not just in Petrobras, but across industry.
Petrobras had been used vociferously, really, as a government vehicle and had ratcheted up quite a meaningful amount of debt at a time where oil prices collapsed and we were mixed with all the headlines of corruption allegations, led to quite a substantial crisis of confidence as to whether Petrobras could actually refinance itself and continue to operate.
How do you balance those two missions? What is the mission of Petrobras for Brazil versus what is Petrobras should return to investors? I think that's a very fine kind of balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, we all know communists work extremely well, so
we don't run the risk of just forgetting, right, that Petrobras has private investors, that Petrobras competes globally.
Petrobras tem sido exemplo de uma empresa de capital misto.
Man. It has been an example, man. Yes, let's watch it, man. It's just
que tem desafio, como você próprio disse, muito grande na construção desse equilíbrio. E a perenidade é o que interessa o investidor de longo prazo, diferente do investidor especulador de 24 horas, de 48 horas, que quer só, de forma muito volátil, colocar o seu capital, ter o seu lucro e ir embora.
The key pressure points that have existed is the downstream refining business that is more of a political vehicle to help smooth petrol prices at the pumps for the population, against the upstreaming element that is highly profitable with very strong margin.
And Petrobras is really good at what it does in its core activity. It's a really...
Yeah, so also for people to understand, like, if I remember well, they can make like 50% margin, or their EBITDA is 50% on their drilling and pumping operations. So Petrobras knows how to carry on those massive projects. Man, it's not like small project when you have like 2, 3, 4, 5 billion capex to go drill in deep sea to find oil is not easy. There's not a lot of company that knows how to do it, and Petrobras do it extremely well. The problem is that when they try to run refineries or other projects, it's the same, because refinery, okay, I'm not the oil specialist, but a refinery is going to make as margin $5 to $15 per barrel. So you can imagine it's quite a small margin. And when you have like a company like Petrobras that needs to basically, I mean, everything works with bribe inside those companies, right? So you can't make work like very small margin business, because there's like so many people that are taking a lot of money from the company, or people that operate. Anyway, so it's very difficult for the type of company like Petrobras that run small margin operations. And this is why I think their refinery business will never work. They will always lose a lot of money with refining, or with always doing anything which is low margin. Because for the type of company like Petrobras that has a lot of pressure, that has a lot of people that are taking a lot of money from that company, you need to be a very, very good operator, and working on small margin is not possible. It's very difficult. And in Brazil, I would say it's even harder. But yeah.
Smart operator in very difficult, ultra deep water conditions. Expertise that it's built up over decades.
Petrobras was founded in the 1950s under President Getúlio Vargas, and it was created under this slogan of "O petróleo é nosso," which means the oil is ours. It was a nationalist rallying cry for Brazil to actually take advantage of its own natural resources.
It started from scratch, drilling for oil on land. And then when that didn't go so well, it started moving offshore in shallow waters, and then it got good at that, and then it developed expertise in deep waters, because the Brazilian coastal shelf falls away quite quickly.
It really made progress offshore in areas like the Santos Basin. But the real game changer was in the early part of the 21st century, when it made these massive discoveries off the coast of Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, known as the pre-salt region. And that's because the oil is deep below the ocean bed, beneath a thick layer of salt.
And Lula would go down there and get his hands dirty with oil, and it would be a great moment when the first oil for these things came out.
Nós estamos aqui no ativo de Búzios, que é o maior ativo mundial em águas ultraprofundas no mundo. Para que a gente consiga operar aqui, a Petrobras precisou desenvolver uma série de novas tecnologias que não existiam ainda, para que a gente conseguisse explorar o pré-sal com segurança e mantendo também a integridade ao longo do tempo, porque é uma condição muito severa de operação que a gente tem aqui. Nós estamos numa unidade conhecida como FPSO, ou seja, ela flutua, produz, estoca e faz offloading do seu óleo. Nós estamos aqui a 2.000 metros da lâmina da água, ou seja, tem mais 2 quilômetros entre a superfície e o leito marinho. E depois do leito marinho ainda, a gente precisa de mais 5.000 metros, ou seja, 5 quilômetros, para conseguir chegar no reservatório da onde a gente produz o óleo que está aqui.
It took a long time, lots of investments, but that's now proving really profitable for the company, and it's recognized as one of the world's best offshore oil operators.
So in 2015, we were still dealing with very high leverage, low oil prices, and debt that needed to substantially come down. And what we have seen since then has been a significant deleveraging program that's taken place over the last decade.
Nós fomos, o ano passado, uma das 20 empresas que mais distribuiu dividendos no mundo. Temos a menor dívida financeira desde 2008.
During the boom of a few years ago, Petrobras was literally the biggest corporate dividend payer in the world, so the government is getting a lot of money from it. But as a tool of policy, all kinds of governments want Petrobras to do stuff that boosts the government's popularity.
So the current government, led by President Lula, wants to go back to Petrobras being a motor of economic activity.
Nós temos hoje uma perspectiva de investimento, segundo o nosso plano de negócios, de 111
Yeah, man, it seems like a big number, it's like 100, 100 billion, I don't know, sounds big.
bilhões de dólares no quinquênio, completamente financiado pelo nosso caixa, principalmente.
Also, man, all of that is when they do financial projection for company like Petrobras, everything is based on the oil price. If the oil price tank, then that's it. So I mean, it's okay. So my point is like it's very difficult for companies, producing companies of any commodity, to make financial projection because maybe, probably they've hedged part of their production over the next 5 years, but they haven't like hedged 100%. I can assure you that they really do hope that the price of oil go up.
So Recife is a regional capital in northeastern Brazil, but it's also kind of strategically placed. It has a huge natural harbour called Suape, which has been developed over the decades, and the northeast is highly supportive of Lula. He gets massive amounts.
Yeah, so the Nordeste from Brazil, where Recife is a very poor part of Brazil. So obviously Lula, I mean, if you don't know, is like a socialist president, and a lot of people from Nordeste, from Recife, I mean, vote for him. And one thing about Recife, so I was in Recife, when was that? 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and I was driving in the car, and like two guys with like a just motorbike just drove past us, like, very fast. And they were like in Havaianas and with a t-shirt, and the t-shirt was like flying like this in the in the air, and you could see that they had like gun on their back, like like in their short. I was like, man, all right. And another thing that I remember is like we were going to there were a traffic light, like when it's red you stop, but in Brazil at night you don't stop because it's too dangerous. And I was driving like this, and my wife was like, hey, at the traffic light, oh, my friend got mugged. I was like, hey, yeah, so you know what, let's not stop. And anyway.
Some votes from up there. And partly because his governments have done a lot to develop the economy of the Northeast, to have some kind of wealth creation, job creation.
Essa obra começou em 2007 e se estendeu mais ou menos até 2014. E nesse período houve grande crescimento da região em função dessa obra. Durante o início das obras, muitas empresas se instalaram, muitas vieram de fora e a maioria local começou a investir em máquinas e equipamentos para fornecer para a Petrobras.
It was in Recife that Petrobras decided to build this huge new refinery and was kind of not just a symbol but an actual motor of regional regeneration.
Quando chegou mais ou menos 2012, 2013, surgiu escândalo chamado Lava Jato.
So what's happening now is that the government is again, right now, investing in the refinery.
Estou muito feliz com essa retomada, porque nós tivemos que paralisar o projeto há 10 anos, né? E essa retomada vai ser importante para a Petrobras e para o país, para a comunidade local. Nós vamos ser a segunda maior refinaria da Petrobras.
O Brasil é hoje uma das 10 maiores economias do mundo e de jeito nenhum é um mercado a ser desperdiçado, principalmente por uma empresa estatal. Então o refino tem tudo a ver com essa estratégia.
We know that the refining business is different from oil exploitation and production because the margins are used to be very thin. We made a calculation.
He agrees with me. This is exactly what I said at the beginning of the video, man.
In 2018, the refining business produced an economic loss of $6 billion to Petrobras.
There's the port of Suape, which has attracted clusters of other businesses to it. And central among those things is the Atlântico Sul shipyard, which was an attempt during the time of the first Lula government to develop a shipbuilding industry in Brazil.
Aprovamos uma lei no Congresso Nacional para reduzir impostos da indústria naval, para que assim a Petrobras tivesse condição de fazer investimentos, gerando emprego no Brasil. Nós, em nenhum momento, fizemos uma ingerência que a Petrobras fizesse investimento.
Of course not. Of course you did not intervene. I mean, moving industries like such as shipbuilding or big industries from one part of the world to another part of the world is very expensive. And the thing is, what this government asked Petrobras is basically to overpay for ship that could be built like half of the price in China.
Que não tivesse viabilidade econômica.
É muito importante para nós produzir navios, sondas, equipamentos no Brasil, porque a gente aumenta a produção nacional, gera empregos, né? E a médio prazo a gente consegue também ter uma indústria competitiva. Como é que o Brasil, um país que tem um litoral desse tamanho, não tem uma indústria naval eficiente? Então, por que ele não tem indústria naval eficiente?
O processo de construção de plataformas, de grandes navios, não é algo simples, não é algo que você resolve fazer isso e aprender a fazer isso num curtíssimo prazo.
So it is going to be interesting to see to what extent this is something that they can do well and it's worth investing. Some people may say, no, it's better not to invest on this. What you're good at, your core capability is not in building refineries. So there's a tension right there on this.
Also, man, honestly, about this shipbuilding activity. So right now, most of the vessels, they are built in China. 80% of the vessel is built in China, and then the last 20% is over the specification of the client could be made elsewhere. But this is the thing, the Brazilian worker, there is a lot of laws that protect them, all right? Nothing is good and nothing is bad. But the Chinese worker, they work like 2 shifts of 12 hours, day and night, to build this ship. And who do you think is going to be the cheapest on the line? And why would Petrobras need to pay more for the ship? And if you say, look, this is to produce economic activity in this part of the globe, all right. But the question is, does it make sense to spend that amount of money to produce that amount of job? Is there maybe a better way to allocate this money? I don't know, man.
There's another tension that all oil companies are facing today, which is, what do you do as you think about, energy transition?
Yeah. Are we still speaking about energy transition? I thought it was over. Oh yes, we're still speaking about that. Energy transition is easy. You just build nuclear plant and you get clear skies, no in the air. Your children can breathe clean air. No problem. That's it. I've solved it. Right? Let's move on.
E muito me perguntam sobre uma aparente contradição entre explorar e produzir petróleo e liderar uma transição energética justa, que é nosso objetivo. Nós entendemos que essa contradição não existe.
We have to...
Yeah, obviously, man. There's no contradiction. Man, that you need to say to get a job like that, man. It's yeah.
Very rapidly make the transition. We cannot slowly make a transition up to 2035. We have
Why? Why you cannot? Why? Explain to me why.
to accelerate. Therefore, does not justify this argument that we have to continue exploring fossil fuels, even new exploration to do the translation. No.
Petrobras sendo a campeã, como a gente imagina que ela vai ser na transição energética, essa transição ela vai também se posicionar no futuro como uma empresa de energia limpa, né? Então, ela vai... A nossa ideia é que ela faça isso em 20, 30 anos, que ela seja...
I don't know about you guys, but any politician in any country, it's very difficult to just listen to them for more than 2 minutes. It's I don't know, man. It's I think I may get rushes, like it's...
Deixe de ser uma produtora de petróleo, principalmente, para ser uma produtora de energia limpa, né? E isso vai... O que a gente quer é que ela continue no imaginário popular, né, na cabeça dos brasileiros, como uma grande empresa de energia.
Ela hoje não movimenta mais a sociedade brasileira emocionalmente como ela movimentava antes. Então ficou muito restrito hoje aos sindicatos petroleiros. Os sindicatos, sim. Os sindicatos continuam com essa lenga-lenga aí de monopólio, que o petróleo é nosso, né? Mas a sociedade, em geral, eu acho que já não tem, assim, já não está olhando para essa questão como olhava há 30 anos atrás.
Eu acho que o Brasil tem muita capacidade de exploração de petróleo. Nós temos um know-how que acho que o mundo todo não tem, de exploração em águas profundas, e temos uma expertise muito boa para isso. Porém, quando ela vai para a obra de construção, refino, não funciona bem, porque ela não tem a mesma expertise. Então, na minha opinião, o ideal seria que ela fosse privatizada.
For decades, Petrobras was fully state-owned, and then in the 1990s it listed some of its shares on the stock market. Private investors own about 2/3 of Petrobras's equity, but the government still has 50% plus one of all the voting rights, so it controls it. It decides who's the CEO and ultimately the direction of the company.
There's nothing too unusual about a company having multiple stakeholders. It's just that Petrobras has two different groups of shareholders whose interests may or may not be aligned. There may be a government in power that agrees with the minority shareholders that Petrobras should do what it does really well and lots of it. Or, you may have the minorities on one hand with a majority shareholder that's saying, no, we want to do all this loss-making stuff as well. So, depends how long you're investing for and what your tolerance levels are.
The problem with Petrobras is management. Due to the political game, you should take the history of Petrobras over more than 70 years. The average mandate of a CEO is 1 year and a half.
This is crazy. This is crazy. Man. Petrobras is a huge company. Man. Can you imagine that? Man? Oh! And they already changed the girl, the woman that we see. There's already a new one. What?
Half. That's no company in the world managed to win with such a volatility.
Tem esse dilema, né? O que se precisa fazer aí agora é ter certeza do futuro. E a gente não está com esse horizonte sólido.
So Petrobras is making loads of money from the pre-salt operations, and that gives it a certain financial cushion, which means that a lot of investors aren't so worried about its investment in other areas and its increased capital expenditure budget. But at the same time, there are some who are very attentive to the fact that in the previous decade, when it went on this big expenditure splurge, not all of its projects went right, either because they were plagued by corruption or because they ran over their budgets and they weren't completed, and a lot of money was wasted.
I mean, this really is, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this really is a pivotal moment for Petrobras, because the thing is, it's been here before to use Petrobras as a driver of other bits of the economy. And the big question is, will it work this time around?
All right, so that was a quite interesting, actually, mini movie from Financial Times. So, and what Petrobras is facing is basically all those state-owned, private, public share companies, and they're all facing the same. Like, how do you steer it in the right direction? It's not that easy, but I mean, it was quite interesting. All right, guys, and if you're still there, let me know in the comments, what did you think about this movie? And do you think that Petrobras and Brazil has a bright future or a more cloudy one? All right, ciao.